Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of my new podcast, This Girl Shoots. I'm your host, Briannalisaphotography. And today I want to talk to you guys about why models almost always become photographers in the end. And in my opinion, these reasons are very obvious and straightforward, and there aren't that many reasons, but since I'm a professional photographer, I do have experience in these things, and I always notice, how come either freelance models or professional licensed agency models usually end up becoming photographers or are photographers already on the side? And it was really interesting for me to know the answer to this question because to me, like when I think about it, it's always the obvious, like, oh, just to make extra money, but it really does go deeper than that, just not to make extra money. So the first reason why models usually end up becoming photographers is that models are heavily influenced by photographers. Therefore, they're always feeling inspired by them since they're always working so closely around them. And also, the modeling and photography industry are combined most of the time. So they always intertwine, and models are always working with photographers, whether they are novice photographers or professional photographers, and vice versa. So if I was a model, for example, I wouldn't really blame any other model for wanting to become a photographer and not necessarily leave the modeling industry, but to also be a photographer because in photography, well, in the photography world, being a photographer is seen as a little bit of a step up from just being a model because us photographers get to control, what you look like, how we portray you as, at least in the modeling industry, not if we're taking pictures of regular everyday people, but specifically for models, freelance models, agency models, or whatever. We have such control and power over how they look and how they are portrayed and where their photos go, where their photos don't go, which photos are chosen to be seen by the public, which photos are not chosen. It's just a photographer has to deal with a lot. We are responsible for so many things, and models do trust us with their image, which is very important, and we have to know that responsibility as photographers in this industry. So therefore, if a model is feeling inspired to create something that she wants to do or he wants to do as a model, they can try to practice that while being the photographer so they get to see the other side of the camera and how they get to look and all of that. And for some models, it really doesn't go as deep as that, whether if they're novices or not. Sometimes it can be just simple as just them having another side gig just to get extra money if they are talented in it or not, or if they are teaching themselves, like how I taught myself portrait photography and other kinds of photography, will I add. And it's also a double threat. They can say, hey, they're a model signed to this specific agency that may be known all over the world for being an amazing modeling industry. Or they can just have that for bragging rights and say, oh, well, they can market themselves better for this and that if they say, oh, well, I'm a photographer too on the side. Or, oh, I'm a videographer on the side. Or I'm a wardrobe specialist on the side. Or whatever to have on the side. So it's just not modeling and it can be other sources of income coming in. It really is just that simple, but for most of the models that I know that go into photography that either quit modeling or just have it as a side gig, that it goes deeper than just that. And the final reason for me is just that they want to just become better. Like they don't really see photography or videography or anything like that as just a step up, but they just see that they see it as a way to just get better and for self-improvement, for modeling purposes. And if they are interested in photography, they get to develop that skill and they get to develop what's called the photographer's eye. And the photographer's eye is very helpful to have, whether you're a photographer or not, honestly, because you get to see things from a different perspective. That's one of the reasons why I love photography, because I see things through certain perspective and different lenses, if that makes sense. So whether this model, whether they're a freelance model or whatever, they want to develop their photographer's eye in order to become better models, or to become better photographers. Like, I am now witnessing so many of the models that I personally worked with and all over the place, and they are getting into photography. Most of them are just leaving modeling completely and just focusing on, street photography and all these different types of photography, to see like which ones, what type of genre that they want to get into and all of that. Some of them are just leaving modeling just for portraits and just for experimentation, and experimentation is just fine. What's crazy to me is, and something that I've noticed, is that us photographers usually do not step down from a photographer's role, because a photographer's role is very powerful. Usually most of us don't step down to modeling, because some of us photographers see modeling as not necessarily a step down, but not as powerful and as responsible as being a photographer, since you are in charge of less stuff and you don't have to worry about, modeling. Models don't have to worry about, wardrobe and all of this stuff. But when a photographer steps down to modeling, they have to worry about, getting all these clothes and maybe getting signed if they want to get signed. It's just not really the path that a photographer goes to if they want to retire from photography. Usually they will go more up into the videography space, something a little bit more harder and more high tech. And photographers will usually go into, something in the web space, website creations. They learn how to create their own apps. Some of them become mentors for other photographers who are just getting into their specific field. There are a lot of routes that photographers can go down, is what I'm trying to say. No photographer that I know, whether it's in my life, in my community, or like over the internet, on social media, that has stepped down from photography to say, hey, I want to be a model, and just that. It's usually a progression from modeling to being a photographer for other people or other things, videographer, web designer, all of these crazy different things that are above. And some photographers even become their own bosses and CEOs of their own companies, of whatever they want to do. It's just, there's a certain line of progression that I've been seeing in the modeling industry and the photography and film industry, that you just keep going up. You keep going steps up. You don't really go steps down. It's always, what can I do better? What can I gather all the skills that I had from this industry into another industry that I'm interested in. Well, that was it for this podcast episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope to see you next time. Bye, everybody.